In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a bee wreath on a bicycle wheel frame. What you'll need for this wreath is a roll of 10-inch poly jute mesh. I have it on my Susie's mesh holder. I always use my Susie's mesh holder when I'm making a wreath and when I'm cutting my deco mesh or poly burlap. Also, you'll need 12 15-inch cuts of yellow poly burlap. You will need 4 different ribbons, 2 1.5 and 2 2.5. These are the ones I'm using. I got this ribbon from Sam's Club. So I've got the daisy flowers on the black to go with the bee. I think the ribbons with the colors complement each other really good. And then I've got these 2 ribbons to go together. You'll also need 12 chenille stems. I'm using the brown to go with the poly jute. I got these from Hobby Lobby. And before I forget, I got the poly jute and the poly burlap from Craft Outlet. You'll also need a sign for your wreath. I made this sign. My daughter, the first bee wreath I made, my daughter wanted a simple sign. So I searched Pinterest for a bee-free printable. That's what I put in the search bar. And this came up and she liked that the background was white. And so I made her wreath using that. And then another family member saw her wreath and they wanted the same wreath. So I made another sign using the same printable. I'll put the link to this printable in the description. If this is on YouTube, if it's on Facebook, I'll put the link in the first comment under the video. What I did, I used my inkjet printer and printed it off 5x7. Then I got a wood board from a craft store. You can get those from any craft store. I used Mod Podge and I Mod Podged it to the board after I cut it out. Now I didn't put Mod Podge on the top because where I printed it off using an inkjet printer, the ink would run if I used Mod Podge on the top. So what I did was I waited till the next day to make sure that it was dry underneath. Then I took it outside and I sprayed a few coats of this on it. I sprayed 1 coat, brought it in, let it dry. About a half an hour, went out and sprayed another coat, waited a half an hour. So that's what I did, because if you spray too much at one time, it could cause the ink to run too. But where I let it dry in between coats, that kept it from running. So this, I wouldn't say this is completely waterproof, but I'm not worried about this sign getting wet because it's going behind a storm door. And then on the back, all I did was on the back, using chenille stems, I laid the chenille stems down. I cut off 4 squares of foam board. Like I said, I'm not worried about this getting wet. I didn't have felt. If I'd had felt, I would have used felt because you don't have to worry about felt getting wet. But foam board was all I had. And like I said, I'm not worried about it getting wet. So I just put a dab of glue on the chenille stem and then I held the foam board down until it dried. Before I get started showing you how we're going to make this wreath, I want to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and share this video with a friend or someone you think would like to learn how to make wreaths. Now, I'm going to get all this out of the way and I'll come back and we'll get started. Before I forget, you also need a glue gun. This is a glue gun I use. I have 2 of these and I like it because it's cordless. So if I have a wreath hanging up on my door, because I put my wreaths on my door to look at them from time to time to make sure I like the way they're looking, and I can just grab my glue gun and walk over to the door and glue whatever I need to on there. But right now I'm going to show you how to attach the chenille stems to the outer rim. There are 12 bars on the bicycle wheel frame, but we're only doing 6. We're going to put 1 in every other bar. So you take your chenille stem, fold it in half, bring it up like that, and then wrap this one around that, this one around that, and then cross them and give them a twist. We're going to do this, like I said, in every other. To put the chenille stems on for the second circumference, we're going to have to use our glue gun. I don't measure it to a certain length. I just take my finger right there, lay it down, then I'll put a drop of glue, being careful not to burn myself right there. I'll get the chenille stem, fold it in half, And while that glue is wet, bring it up so it'll stick on that glue and give it a twist. Then I will put another drop of glue on this other side to keep it from sliding in. Now I'm going to do this on every other bar, and I'm doing it offset from these. So I've got the outer ones here, but in between these I'm putting the second circumference. I'm going to put all these on, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the poly jute mesh. Now that I've got the chenille stems on the frame, I'm going to start putting the poly jute on. Like I said, I got this from Craft Outlet, and I love having it on my Susie's mesh holder because it helps me to control the mesh better instead of it rolling on the floor and snagging on the table. If you're interested in purchasing a Susie's mesh holder, I have an affiliate link in my profile that's in my link tree where you can go check these out and purchase one. Also, to make it easier for you, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find the link in the description. If you're watching this on Facebook, you'll find the link in the comments underneath the video. So what I'm going to do, I've got the edge cleaned already where I already made another wreath using this. So I'm just going to get the end of the poly jute and walk it in. I need to change sides. Wait a minute. Well, I'm right-handed. I need to put my Susie's mesh holder over here. Give me just a minute and I'll come back. When I'm cutting my mesh, I like to have it on my left side so I could pull it out and cut it. But when I'm using it to hold the mesh while I do poofs, I like to have it on my right side. So, okay, so we're going to take the edge of the poly jute and we're going to walk it from one side to the next. Find a chenille stem that you want to start in. It doesn't matter which one you start on. Put it in there and give it a twist. Now, where this is going behind a storm door, I'm going to make the poofs 8 inches. I would normally make them 10 inches, but I don't want this to be very poofy so it won't get squashed behind the storm door. So I'm only doing 8 because the poly jute is going to fill it in. And then the ribbon also. So I'm doing 8 inches, and I'm one who measures. I can't help it. And go to the next chenille stem. And yes, that's not a very big poof, but it is still work. We're going to have other things to fill this in. So I'm going to put a poof all the way around in each chenille stem. I've got the last poof on the first circumference. Now I'm going to move the poly jute to the second circumference. And to do that, I'm just going to get that taut and bring it to this chenille stem. Get that as tight as I can without pulling on this poof. Okay. So we've got it like that. And I'm going to puff this poof up to help hide that. So let's see, I don't think that poof. Make sure I've got my poofs about even. Okay, then I'm going to do 8 inches on every chenille stem. This is the last poof on this circumference, and I'm just going to take it back to where I started on this circumference. What I'm going to do so that this isn't sticking up too far is I'm going to untwist this. So I can just lay this on top of that poly jute instead of having it laying on top of the twist. Now, I'm going to cut this off. See if I can get that poof even. And it's a little bit not like I like it, so let's see if I can straighten this out. All right. There we go. Now I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to cut it off a good length because when I cut this off, I'm going to put it here in the center, and I want it to help give me some support when I put my sign on. Instead of the sign, when I put it on, flattening and going into the wreath, I want it to lay on top of the wreath. So I'm going to cut this off. I don't know. I'm not worried about how long. I'm just going to cut it. And then I'm going to tuck this in here. And like I said, that's going to help give me some support for my sign. I can get it tucked in there. It's like a little poof in the center of the wreath. So there we go. There's the poly jute on the wreath frame. So now we're going to start with the poly burlap. I've got my Susie's mesh holder out of the way. Got my poly burlap. We're doing ruffles with the poly burlap. Like I said, these are 15 inches long. I need something to lay on them to hold it down while I, there we go, walk it in. So to do a ruffle, lay it with the curve side down and the factory edge on each side. Find the center, kind of like to go under like that to help with the fraying. And I'll walk it from one end to the other end. When I get down here, I kind of like to tuck it under. And then we've got like a bow tie. I want to make sure my bow tie is even. Then we're just going to find a chenille stem and put it on. Twist it on. And then you can shape it out how you want. But with the poly burlap, I wouldn't fool with it too much, because if you fool with poly burlap too much, it stretches that out and it won't go back. And then it can cause it to unravel. So I like the poly burlap, but I don't like fooling with it too much. Now I'm going to do a ruffle and every chenille stem the exact same way. We have our base for the wreath finished. You can do this base for any wreath that you want. You can use poly jute, you can use deco mesh for the poofs in any color for the ruffles. So the ribbon that I have is cut 14 inches and I have 6 of the 1.5 inch. I have 12 of the 2.5. So how I'm doing the ribbon, let's get these out of the way. I'll do these first. I'm going to take the 2.5 inch. Now when you're doing the ribbon, you want to make sure to keep the way that your bees are going consistent. So you want to make sure that when you do your ribbon, your bees are always facing that way. So I'm going to lay that out, then lay a 1.5 on here and walk it in. Now before I put it on, to make sure that it's even, and I'm going to shape it out. I mean, you don't have to shape it out. It depends how you like your ribbon tails on your wreath. You can just do it straight. Or if you want to like offset the ribbon, I've done this before where I've kind of crossed this over and walked in. And then that helps keep it like this to where you offset the ribbon. So it's totally however you like for your ribbon to lay on the wreath. For me, I'm just going to do it like this and shape it out. Get that. And then I'm going to start on the chenille stem, it doesn't matter which one, and twist that on there. Then I'm going to come back. The reason I don't mind this laying over that, like that, is because I'm going to take, let's see, find the ones, see with 6 of these, I dovetailed the end of the ribbon. All of these I dovetailed. 6 of these I dovetailed on both ends. And in 6 of these, I only dovetailed on one end. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one of the ones that I only dovetailed on one end, and I'm going to do like a little loop here. Lay it down, walk it in. Then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to twist the chenille stem around this. Make sure my tail comes out the same length as this. Make sure I have that the way I want it. And then I'm just going to tuck the chenille stem into the poly burlap. You can clip these off if you want to. It's totally whatever you prefer. My dryer is going off. That's what that looks like. And I'm going to do these ribbons, the bee and the flowers, every other on this circumference. Now I'm going to do the second circumference with the same ribbons every other. I finished the first set of ribbon, so now I'm going to start on this second set. It's the same thing. One set and every other chenille stem. Now that I've finished putting all of the ribbon on, I'm going to go back and straighten the ribbon out, shape it the way that I want it. I want it to kind of curve out. You can pull it straight out, you can curve it, and that's what I want to do. I want to curve it. Make sure I have my little loop the way that I want it. And I'm going to do this with all of them. I hung the wreath up to look at to see what point I wanted to be the top. I'm going to go on ahead and tie a piece of twine. I got this from Hobby Lobby. I just clipped a piece off. What I want to do on this one is run these two ends through there and then tighten a knot so that the string won't slide back and forth. So it's stuck there and you can still hang it up. And that's a little long, so I'm just going to tie it again below that first knot and then clip that excess off. So now I know where the top is, because that is going to help me know where to put my sign. I hung it up and I placed my sign up against it to see where I wanted to put it, and this is where I want to put my sign. So just pull my chenille stems out and lay it here. And then I have to feed these chenille stems through the poly burlap and the poly jute to find a bar to wrap this around. Okay, I'm going to pull this through there. Flip this over. And I'm going to start wrapping it here, but then I'm going to wrap around this so it doesn't slide back and forth. And I don't want to pull it too tight. I have the tendency to pull it as tight as I can, and then I end up having to go back to loosen it, because when I do that, it like makes the sign disappear inside the wreath. So I'm going to find a little place here, run that through. Now this I want to get as tight as I can. Now I want to find where to run this through. Like this. Again, I don't want to pull it too tight. See, I had that pulled too tight. I'm going to try to take this up under that loop. It helps where the chenille stems are brown, or the light brown, so they kind of blend in. So that's as tight as I want to pull it. And flip it over and bring it up here to stabilize it. Now let's do the last one. I'm going to find, it's going to go in between the ruffles. As far as I want to pull it through, let's find the bar through that I'm going to wrap it around. Okay, right here. Now this one I'm going to bring to the center to run this through to stabilize it. And then when I get this on, I will put on the placemat on the back. I'm using a placemat that I got from Dollar Tree. I like these mats from Dollar Tree because they fit almost perfectly on these frames. find a place to run zip tie through, and then put it around the frame. I do one here, and I'll go straight across and do one here, then one here, and straight across, and one here. I like the simplicity of it and the natural vibe that it gives. If you like it, let me know in the comments, and if you've watched the video this far, leave me a bee emoji. I hope that I inspired you to get creative. Until next time, bye everyone.